Welcome to the Relationship Diversity Podcast, where we celebrate, question, and explore all aspects of relationship structure diversity, from soloamory to monogamy to polyamory and everything in between, because every relationship is as unique as you are. We'll bust through societal programming to break open and dissect everything we thought we knew about relationships, to ask the challenging but transformational questions: who am I, and what do I really want in my relationships? I'm your guide, Carrie Jerslow, best-selling author, speaker, intuitive, and coach. Join me as we reimagine all that our most intimate relationships can become. Today's episode is part of our conversation series. I'm just one voice in this relationship diversity movement, and it's important to bring more unique perspectives into the conversation. Today, I'll be talking with Jess Lynn, a therapist and coach who specializes in working with non-monogamous newbies. She debunks 5 big myths about non-monogamy, bringing truth to what many non-monogamous people actually experience. But first, a little about her. Jess is an ethical non-monogamy relationship coach and licensed therapist. After opening her previously monogamous relationship of 6 years, Jess quickly learned just how little information there was out there from professionals on how to navigate non-monogamy. Jess is passionate about helping others to create healthy communication patterns with themselves, partners, and others so that they can design and embrace their relationship dreams. Through her coaching services, she shares her knowledge and personal stories through the lens of a trained clinician in hopes that others can reach relationship success. Let's get into the conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Relationship Diversity Podcast. I've got a great guest today, and I'm super excited about this topic. I've got Jess Lynn, who is a non-monogamous coach and therapist, and we are going to debunk all of these perceptions that are out there about the non-monogamous lifestyle. I'm very excited about this because I think it's so important to learn about what other people go through. We make all these judgments, no matter who we are. We make judgments about experiences we don't have. We kind of go in our mind and make up these stories. And a lot of times those stories have no truth to them. We're just making it up from our perceptions, from our past, using our filters. And so this conversation is so exciting because we're coming for them. So welcome, Jess, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love your intro. You're so spot on. Like, we're coming for it. So
Yes. So the way I love to start these conversations is to find out a little bit about your story, who you are, where you've come from, and how you got to coaching specifically non-monogamous and ethical non-monogamous people.
yeah. Well, it's been a journey, that's for sure. As all good stories are, I suppose. So I grew up in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, in a fairly conservative area. My parents, especially my mom, was always very open about sex and relationships and all that stuff. There was no like weird weird to me, but weird, like, you can't have a boyfriend or things like this. Though it was a conservative area, and I was raised in the Catholic Church, it was never like you have to save sex until marriage or like anything like that. My mom was like very open about everything, which I really appreciated, especially looking back now. And so I just like didn't have any of those, like, a lot of people who sometimes end up in the community I'm in. A lot of people do have that experience as children, and I really didn't. So, I just kind of grew up, I would say I was what you might call like a serial monogamist, from like 14 or 15, all the way up, until I got married. I pretty much had one long-term boyfriend after another. And sometimes like just even like a couple days in between relationships, right? And I can't say I ever really felt that weird to me. I never felt like I was doing anything wrong, but of course, other people, right? Talking about
Mm-hmm.
myths and judgment, other people had ideas, right? Like, you must not have cared about him if you're just jumping onto this, new relationship, or you just can't be alone. And so you just drag one relationship on until you find somebody new, um, or you don't know how to be independent, these kind of things.
Right.
And so that was, I mean, I see where someone who doesn't understand a lot about a person or like what's going on in your head, when you're a teenager, like I did not know what was going on in my head either, right?
Right.
Um, I'm just kind of like making it up as I go along, like doing what feels
Totally.
right. And yeah, so that just pretty much continued all the way through college. I met my husband while I was a senior in college. At that point, I had already decided to go get my master's in social work. And yeah, we pretty much knew, like from our first date, like we both say now, like we knew that was our person. And yeah, so like that whole thing happened. It was very like freeing relationship. I felt like he saw me for who I was and
Mm.
vice versa. And just kind of I went to grad school, um, and like started getting interested more in like human sexuality and that kind of thing, thinking myself, like what that looked like for me. And, came out of school, got a job. I worked mostly in medical social work, so hospice and
Mm.
hospitals, ICUs. And the more I worked with different people, the more I don't know, I think I just like reflected on like what has been important to me. And, I had some experiences as a young child, like losing people that were important to me and stuff. And so I really like dove into this like kind of grief and relationships kind of space. And
Mm.
so in my private practice nowadays, I am a grief therapist, separate from doing my non-monog relationship coaching. But I just, the more I learned about like, death and what the meaning of life is in conjunction to that, and it all just came back to relationships.
Right.
And yeah, so I think I just was like trying to figure myself out and follow these kind of two paths that were like sort of diverging, but kind of coming together. And yeah, I you know, did the whole thing, eventually came to private practice and working with people. A lot of people just started saying to me, you should really work with couples. Have you ever worked with couples? I think you would be great. And yeah, that kind of coincided with like in my personal life,
Mm.
me coming into my non-monogamy journey. So then those two things kind of just like came to a head at the same time and kind of ran into
I
each other at first.
Yeah, well, I'd love to learn more about what your non-monogamous journey looked like. It's different for everyone, and I think it's really interesting to hear the journey that people go on, especially because you cater to newbies, non-monogamous newbies,
Mhm.
that it's helpful to hear what people's journeys were like. So can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So so this was about 2.5 years ago. So we're in the middle of the pandemic, right? We're all like glued to our phones because there's like nothing else to do.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's that it was just more of this content was coming up or the algorithms, doing what they do.
Right.
But I just felt like I was seeing a lot of like generally like alternative relationship type of stuff, like whether it's like this is my husband and our girlfriend, or I don't have a primary partner and I have four boyfriends or whatever. I just started seeing this stuff, and with my interest in like relationships and just like I just think humans in general are like pretty fascinating and like
Mhm.
why do our brains do what they do, and I think with my background in social work and sociology, like, why do we do the things we do? Why do we believe what we believe? How does society contribute to those things?
Yeah.
So I'm just like thinking, oh, this is just like an intellectual curiosity, right? And it wasn't. I mean, it was,
Mm.
but the more I consumed of that, I just kept thinking back to like how my relationship patterns had been and how people would suggest, like, you can't possibly have loved that guy if you already love this guy and these kind of things. And I was like, shoot, this might be me. And here
Wow.
I am, I'm what, 28, been married for almost 4 years at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and had been with my husband for 6 years, and was like, cool. So what in the hell do I do now? Like, what am I supposed
Yeah.
to do? Is this me? I don't even know for sure that this is me. How would I ever know if I didn't try it? And what is even going on? And in the middle of all that, I was kind of like coming to terms with my sexuality. And apparently, everyone but me knew that I came out as bisexual originally, but I would identify as queer now. But,
Mm-hmm.
I would use the word, I would say that I'm hetero flexible, like all through college. Like, for the right woman, yeah, sure, maybe I'd entertain it kind of thing. And people would laugh. And I never had dated a woman or been in a relationship or really had any sexual experience with women. And so these things kind of like collided as like oh, maybe this is how I could bring it to my husband, like
Mm.
that I have never had this experience. And so that is what I did. I would say I didn't do it in like the best way ever. I pretty much created like a Bumble profile, did not publish it. So I wasn't cheating. I wasn't talking to people. No one could see my profile, but I just I needed, I think somatically, like in my body to feel like, what will it feel like to put one picture of me and write the words, I'm married and polyamorous, or married and um, interested in exploring non-monogamy or whatever, just to see what it felt like. And I
Yeah.
kind of just like handed him my phone, and he was like, uh, okay, like what? Where is this coming from? So, I kind of gave him the whole spiel, and he just asked for some time to think about it. And of course, I wasn't expecting any kind of answer right away. Um, and yeah, we just kind of like, we spent one long car ride to a friend's wedding, kind of writing down like our fears and like what we thought might be guidelines, just like we were honestly just winging it, right? Like we had
Mm-hmm.
no idea. We did not know anyone who was non-monogamous. So we were kind of just like researching online, hoping that they were legitimate sources and
Mm-hmm.
trying to make this up as we went along. That's how it started.
Ooh. And how
Yeah,
is it going? So now that's almost maybe 2.5, 2 to 3 years ago.
yeah, yeah. So that was 2.5 years ago. So, again, it's been up and down. I would
Mhm.
honestly say I'm very lucky. We both are very lucky, I should say, in that I wouldn't say we've had a ton of like super low lows. Like I don't there were times where
Mhm.
one of us would say like, "Oh my gosh, what are we doing? Is this worth it? Are we sure we want to do this? What if it breaks us apart?" These kind of
Mhm.
things. Um, but on the whole, I really do believe that anytime we did feel that way, it almost wasn't us speaking that. It was
Mm.
really this like societal messaging coming through us, right? We would like hit a little bump that like we've always had great communication and everyone has always reflected that back to us. And so I don't think that either of us ever truly thought like this could break us up. I think that was all like societal messaging getting internalized and realizing like, hey, we're different and that
Mhm.
kind of thing. So yeah, we went along. I dated several women. I was in relationships with several women. And then I just, for some reason, was like, what do you think if I maybe dated a guy? And he was like,
Mm.
okay. I feel like I have to process some things over again, kind of. And, we went through that whole thing. And um, any woman or femme presenting human who has been on a dating app knows that men can be creepy at
Mm.
times. So I would like switch my settings on and off because I would get weird messages until I pretty quickly met my other current partner. We've been together actually, this is so like kitschy, but tomorrow is our 1 year match anniversary. So we met
Oh.
Okay Cupid a year ago tomorrow. So yeah, and that just kind of that relationship has been beautiful, healing thing in that it was pretty similar to my relationship with my husband, where like from the very beginning, we were like, oh wow, this is huge. Like this is something big.
Yeah.
And so I did have very significant emotional relationships with women, but I think, and might be a
Hmm.
word, and I think that this kind of hit me, it just felt different. And I don't think it's because he was a man necessarily, it's just a personality thing. So that's where we are now. So I have my husband and my partner, and then my husband also dates. He dates a little bit more casually than I do.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of where we've
Yes.
come to.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable and sharing your story. I think everyone does it differently, although it sounds actually similar to my experience. Um, and I guess like that's a great segue into the myths of non-monogamy, because when you're talking about it, right? When you're in that talking about it phase, all the fears come up, and those fears are infiltrated with these myths of what we think the experience is going to be like.
Yeah.
And so, can you share some of maybe 3 or 4 of these myths about non monogamy and debunk them for us?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the first one that really like to what you're speaking to with like when you're in this talking part, right? Of what this is going to be like. I think the first one that kind of hit us as a couple is this and debunking it for ourselves, but then like also getting other people's judgment, right, throughout time is this like there's got to be something missing
Mm,
or have to be dissatisfied with the relationship, especially if you're a person, which not everyone does, but especially if you're a person in a monogamous relationship opening up, there's got to be something wrong. Like,
mm,
why, if you have done the thing and you found the guy and you're
mhm,
telling me you knew from day one that this was, you guys knew and you went through the whole thing, you got married, why would you you know
mm,
so I think that's a big misconception or a myth is like that if you are a person currently in a relationship and you want to explore non-monogamy, there's got to be something wrong or missing or some level of dissatisfaction in your current relationship.
yeah. So, what's the truth? What has been your experience, and what do you find
Yeah,
with the people you work with?
yeah, I think the truth is that that has nothing to do with it, and most healthy non-monogamous people will tell you like there is nothing that I was missing with my husband. There was nothing that I looked at our relationship and was like, everything would be so great and perfect if only this one thing,
Hmm.
right? Are there things that like I could give or take, or things like, does he have flaws? Do I have flaws? Yeah, of course. But this was never, has never been any question in my mind. If anything, quite the opposite, because I don't think that I could genuinely be doing this with someone if I did think that. If I felt
Hmm.
like there was something missing, I feel like I wouldn't feel that I'm like on solid ground, right? To like go forth and trust each other enough. And we were just talking the other night, and that's what he even said to me is like, what people don't get, Jess, is that we trust each other
Hmm.
so much, right?
Hmm.
And if we felt like something was wrong, or we were missing something, and the other person wasn't willing to try to like meet that need or whatever prior to opening up, this probably would not go very well.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
but
and
yeah,
I also think that this idea of missing something it comes from the expectation that my partner should be everything I need. And if
Yeah,
they're not
absolutely.
everything I need, then something is missing. And I just
Yep.
think that that is too heavy an expectation to put on any one person. And I found so much of a relief when I could say, well, I feel like I'm a complex person, and I enjoy that, my husband really is so much for me, and we have a family together, and yet my other partner is also fulfills a part of me that I think if I were to ask my husband to fill, or to fill is a weird word because I think leads to codependency, but to, I guess, reflect that part of me, that it's like forcing something and it's too much pressure
Yeah.
on him, and vice versa, that I feel too much pressure on, having to be everything for, my husband. And it's a beautiful thing when we can be happy for our other partners that they get to express different sides of themselves. And it's for me, a win-win because I don't have to, um, force something in myself that is really, not something that I want to do. Or like, even, like my husband likes to go to museums and, learn lots of like details about things. And I honor that in him, but it's also like I can
Mhm.
go there, but it's not like really exciting for me. But that's something he gets to do with his other partner. And I love that for him.
Yeah, I think that's like so poignant. And, that's like, it goes along with this, when you're getting, first you have to kind of like figure out how to diffuse this thought like in yourself around like a monogamy, like monogamous ideas around like being everything for one person and vice versa. But I think, when you get that from other people too, it's like the example I use, like your museum example, is my husband loves the beach. I think sand is the most horrible thing ever. I appreciate how hard the tide and I understand it's natural and I think it's beautiful to look at. To me, it is literally negative worth it to go to the beach. I'm hot, sticky, I'm grumpy, I burn. I do not like it.
Uh-huh.
And my parents have a condo by the beach, and my husband always wants to go. And like, have I gone? Yeah. I mean, it's a free place to stay too.
Right.
I've gone. I'll go. I love that he loves it. But he doesn't have as much fun with me because I don't
Mm,
wanna sit out there all day,
mm,
and it's just not, like, my thing. And, some people will say I've had people say to me, "Well, I don't like beaches either, but my partner does, so I do it for them." Like, I do it
mm.
for and I'm like, "Okay." And I do and have done it for him, but gee, wouldn't it be great if someone was like, "Oh my god, I love the beach,"
Yeah.
and wanted to go with him? They'd have so much more fun. They'd stay out there all day long, they'd swim, they'd all these things. I'm just gonna sit under my umbrella wrapped in a towel with, like, layers of sunscreen on, like,
Right.
you know, what's wrong with that? Like, it doesn't mean I don't love him enough to, give him something that I don't particularly love to do. Of course I can and will do that. But also there's nothing wrong with somebody else like going and doing those things with him.
Absolutely. And there's so many limiting beliefs and fears of, self-worth and all of that wrapped up in it. And
Yep.
too many to dissect in a podcast episode.
Yes.
But but it's all there. And that's why I love this idea of, conscious being aware of these underlying feelings and unresolved wounds and programming, social programming that we have. That's part of the journey, I think, of any relationship, specifically any relationship that is outside of the norm. So let's go into another one. What's another one?
Yeah. So this is a big one. I think it's very, very common. That, it's all about sex, right? This is the whole
Mm,
thing. we non-monogamous people, we just want to have sex with everyone.
Right.
Everything's an orgy. Like this is all we do. Listen, I'm the last person who will yuck anybody's yum. If you want to have orgies every weekend in your house, all your partners and all that is good for you. Please
Yeah.
do that. And like, stand in your power and your knowing and like be yourself. And also that's not how it is for everyone.
Right.
This is not like I think unfortunately this really gets put, especially this idea gets put on men a lot, where like if a
Yes.
man has two female partners, it's like, oh, what a bro, like he's so happy, look at that smile, like, and it's first of all, that's so gross, right? Like those women are not objects. But
Right.
second of all, like, how do you know anything about their dynamic? He could be asexual or on the ace spectrum. Like, you don't
Mhm.
know what goes on in their bedroom. Also, it's none of your business.
Mhm.
So this like it's all about sex thing, I just find so funny. Like, and because there's so many like subsects of non-monogamy, like, are there people who are non-monogamous and it is purely or mostly for the sexual fantasy experience, novelty? Absolutely. And does that mean that like every single time that those people have a new like sexual experience, that it's just like wham bam thank you ma'am, and like didn't
Right.
even look you in the eye and never had a drink or a conversation? Like, a lot of people, and that's what I see a lot with like swingers or people in just what they might call an open relationship for just sexual purposes, say, like, I don't want to, like, I want to at least have like one conversation and like connect on a human level, right? You want
Mhm.
to be able to talk to people about like what you like and don't like and need. So even when it is just about sex, in air quotes, right? Because there's nothing wrong with that
Mhm.
anyway. That is not what's going on here. This is not just like an excuse for people to cheat, things like
Right.
that. Do people cheat in the non-monogamous community? Yeah. Just like
Yes.
people cheat in the monogamous community, it absolutely happens. There are toxic non-monogamous folks, just like there are
Mhm.
toxic monogamous folks. And it
Exactly.
happens, but that does not speak for all of us,
Right.
by any.
There's such a broad spectrum of non-monogamy and polyamory. There are a lot of platonic polyamorous relationships
Yep.
where there is more to the connection than sex. And maybe, in clients and people I've talked to, there's no sexual expression. And that's a possibility too for people to explore a heart-centered loving relationship with someone else that could or could not include sex. But yes, definitely a
Yeah.
myth, and understanding that there's just such a wide spectrum of connections in non monogamy. So I love that. You are bringing it today. All right, Jess, what's another one?
All right. I have two other big ones, I think.
Oh,
So
good.
one, this this one is so funny to me. I personally have gotten one side of this more than the other, but they both go around for sure. That like either non-monogamous folks must just be fighting jealousy all the time,
Mm.
or they just don't experience jealousy at all, and that's how they can do this, right? As if we're like robots or something. Like, um, do I feel jealous of every single experience, partner, whatever that my husband has? No. When we talk so much about compersion in the non-monogamous community and like feeling that joy for your partner. And my husband just had a date last night, and I'm just like laying in bed listening to talk about it. He's like brushing his teeth, talking about it. And I'm just like laying there smiling, like, oh my God, that's so cute. Oh my gosh. And also, you followed the most important polyamorous rule and brought me leftovers. So, like, this is all, they made homemade pasta. So I was like, I really would like some
Nice.
leftovers. Um, So yeah, like, do I feel jealous at every single little thing? No, absolutely not. That would tear me apart, right?
Mhm.
Um, and am I a robot that never feels jealousy? Is that how non-monogamous people like do it, right? Where
Mhm.
they just don't have this, they just like don't, like, we're almost like missing part of our brain or something where like we just
Mhm.
don't feel jealous. That's just not true. I think that we can't, we don't teach emotions very well, in my opinion. And we teach emotions as like it's got to be a negative or positive
Mhm.
emotion. And jealousy always goes in the negative bucket. It's just frowned upon and seen as this like, that's not, that's a horrible thing to feel. We never want to feel that. It's not good. Or in some varied times, I have seen this like weird, like jealousy and possession mean that your partner loves you, like
Oh,
that
that's
they get
twisted.
jealous. Like if they get jealous of you because somebody's like hitting on you at a bar or something, that somehow that means like, oh, they just love you so much, right? All of the stuff around jealousy and like whether you feel it or you don't, it's bad. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
Yeah, well,
I'm a human
jealousy,
being.
I think that people label jealousy as uncomfortable, and we shy away from the uncomfortable. And I like to look at jealousy as an invitation. It doesn't feel good, but it's an
Mhm.
invitation to look at something that is beneath it, because I think jealousy is a very surface emotion. It's the go to, right? No, I can't do this. I feel jealous. When in reality, I think it's always something that's deeper, that is an opportunity to heal and look at, which is what I love about this lifestyle, is that it is not that monogamy is not, but it is an opportunity to grow and evolve and learn more about myself. And I get to be reflected, that what's going on with me by more people than just one, which is great
Mhm.
and uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Um, but I think like that jealousy compersion kind of like ride that one goes on is similar to any emotional journey, and almost like liken it to grief. You talk about
Mhm.
being,
Yeah.
specialty in grief, and I'm currently going through a grieving process. I've just lost my mother, and I've lost other people in my life that are close to me, so I know the ride that it
Yeah.
takes. Of like, grief is on its own, time
Not
and
linear.
space and journey. And I find that sometimes like something that maybe wouldn't make me jealous yesterday makes me jealous today, or feeling the
Mhm.
feelings that I would label as jealousy because of
Yeah.
either, something that had happened, I got triggered, it was a particular circumstance that just, dug in a little bit differently than the other one. And so, really being conscious and aware of those emotions, those feelings, and then having the space to go deeper and really looking at what the opportunity is from that emotion. But it is a ride. It's like, I don't know, I didn't feel jealous about that yesterday, but today I'm just feeling, I'm feeling the emotion boiling up.
Yeah. I say that all the time. Like, I love that you said, and I say this all the time, and I cannot articulate it today for some reason, but, like the feelings that I'll label as jealousy, right? Like, there are so many things that can feel like jealousy. And in my mind, like, it doesn't really matter what label, like, if it feels like jealousy to you, then it feels like jealousy to you, right?
Mhm.
Um, and like you said, what can we like, if I feel jealous about something, probably that means there's something underneath there that's like maybe a need that I need met that I'm not
Right.
expressing, or whatever. It doesn't mean like that you're a bad person or that it means you just have some digging to do.
Yeah, and when we stop at jealousy, it's just like that just makes us we're stopping there.
Mhm.
We're missing, I feel,
Yep.
opportunities. That doesn't mean, and jealousy comes up in monogamy
It comes up in
just
friendships too.
right. Friendships. I mean, anything, any relationship, when we start comparing ourselves or thinking that, usually I think it's a self-worth issue. Like, I'm not good enough, so I'm jealous of that person because from my outside perspective, they seem like they're better or whatever.
Right.
Um, so I love that. And let's get into the last big one. I'm ready, Jess.
Yeah. This is, I think, this is different for everyone. Not in, non-monogamy, depending on like your relationship structure, but this one really like, I feel like it punches me in the gut. Sometimes this idea that non-monogamous relationships are inherently unstable and less committed than
Ooh, good one.
monogamous relationships. This is like, I feel it in my gut, even as I'm just saying it, because first of all, like, again, with the language and like that word committed,
Mhm.
like, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be committed to a person in any, relationship, right? There are people who feel very committed to their employer because they're great and they support them and they treat them like a human. And then there are people who are like, no, this person's an asshole and I don't feel committed to this company at all, right?
Mhm.
We commit in friendships, right? We decide how much time, effort, energy, money, whatever we're going to put into these relationships.
Mhm.
And so, why does, for example, me having two partners, why does that necessarily mean that our relationship, like my relationship with my other partner, is inherently less stable? Or by proxy, I get this a lot, that now that my husband and I are not monogamous, that our relationship has somehow changed in a way that makes our marriage less stable than it
Right.
previously was, or that I can't possibly be whatever as committed means, as committed to my husband as I was, or that I can't be making this commitment to my boyfriend in any kind of way, right? And it doesn't have to be the same level of commitment. It's not about comparison, although that's what
Mhm.
we like to do because we're all about binary thinking as humans. And we really have to deprogram that. But
Yeah.
like this, it's just so funny to me because my immediate reaction to like someone saying, oh, well, this is clearly like unstable, like this isn't going to work.
Mm.
Like
Right.
it'll work for now, but like there's no way this is going to work long term because you're not as committed. And I'm over here like, hold on, like again, not trying to say I'm not, not a person who like thinks non-monogamy or polyamory is like a superior form of
Mhm.
relationship at all. You do you,
Yeah.
but I'm over here like, I'm sorry, I'm not committed. I am holding up and pouring into and spreading my time, energy, effort, emotions across two very committed relationships. How can that
Yes.
be less committed? And again, even if it's not polyamory or it's not, someone like I consider both of these men at this point to be my life partners. I have the same intentions with my boyfriend that I do with my husband.
Mhm.
Um, sometimes those things don't work out, just like in monogamy. Sometimes people split up, they get divorced, whatever. But that is my current intention. But even if that's not, you know, where you're at, if you're not looking for life partners or if you were just, exploring different kind of non-monogamy, I just don't understand why that has to mean you're not committed.
Right, right. It's a lot of judgments about, again, the, in air quotes, type of person who would,
Yeah,
explore this lifestyle. And again, those judgments are coming from a place of, I think, people just not wanting to get to know other people's perspectives.
yeah,
So I love that debunking, and I agree with you completely. It is not my experience. My experience, I feel more committed to my relationships and hoping that they are long term as well. And so I want to lead this into a question that I'm wondering: what is your perspective on, and how would you define success in relationships, intimate relationships?
Wow,
Because
that's a
right, we're
question.
so used to like, well, a successful relationship. I've been married 30 years to the same person. I'm
Yep,
successful in my
yep,
relationship, even though I'm miserable, I'm
yep.
successful. So
Mhm.
I really want to be
Yeah.
redefining what success is in relationships.
Yeah, no, that's such a good question because, are there couples who have been monogamous and faithful and married for 30 years and have what I would consider a beautiful, successful relationship? Absolutely. And then I have heard from friends, from clients, whatever, oh, we're going to my parents' ex, number of years anniversary, but I don't really know what we're celebrating because they
Mm,
hate each other or because they don't
wow.
spend any time together or whatever, right? So why this obsession with length of time, right?
Mhm.
If it's not for life, it's not important. It's not, and we don't do this with other kinds of relationships as much as romantic ones. You have childhood best friends. You have that friend you met at summer camp that was like the best thing ever, and you left camp crying in each other's arms saying we'll never lose touch, and you never spoke again, and they
Mm,
moved to wherever, right? That doesn't mean that was not significant.
yeah.
Absolutely. That could have been a life altering relationship, perspective altering relationship for it could be a week, right? People go on retreats or those kind of things. These are significant, sometimes pivotal relationships. So I don't believe that like length of a relationship has anything to do with how successful, important, or whatever it is. I think for me, in the plainest way I can say it is to me, a successful relationship is one in which the two, three, four, I don't care, however many people are in this relationship are actually themselves in the relationship. Because
Ooh.
if we are coming from a place, like if I am in a relationship where everything seems great from the outside and maybe even from the inside for the most part, and I've been in these really, back when I was younger and even when I've dated in non-monogamy, um, you know, if I am holding something of myself back or they're holding something of themselves back, do I have a successful relationship with them? No, because it's not really me
Mm,
or it's not really them, right? So to me, the most successful relationships, regardless of labels or time or whether there's sex involved or not, or how much or how little, or what it looks like if you live together, all that stuff. It's about, are you able to actually show up as your authentic self in your truth, in your knowing, in your power, and stand there with this person and choose them, regardless of what that looks like or how long.
oh, that is so spot on. I love that, Jess. Thank you so much for saying that because, when we get to the end of our lives, and most people, I mean, you worked in hospice, so
Mhm.
most people are reflecting on the quality of their relationships and being
Yeah.
who you are, like really being your truth in your relationships is going to determine how fulfilling they are. And allowing and accepting who you are, being your true self, and then bringing people into your life who also can meet you in that space, that is relationship success. And you're right, whether it is a hello in passing, a 2 week relationship, a 2 month, 2 year, 20-year relationship, doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
is the quality of that. And it all starts from being your true, authentic self. So thank you for bringing that. That is excellent and amazing. And I want to also tell people that if you are, what I love about what you do, Jess, is you really cater to, like I said, non monogamous newbies. So if you are thinking about this lifestyle or, possibly going into it and you don't know where to start and you're nervous, take it from people who just kind of figured it out along the way.
Yeah, I was winging it.
Right. It's really nice to have some support. So, Jess, can you, in closing, tell us a little bit about your coaching and how that works?
Yeah. Yeah. So I really, exactly what you just said. I wish I had someone in the beginning to kind of, like not tell me what to do in like a prescriptive way, but just like reflect back to me or like talk to me about certain words I didn't know or point me to books or whatever. So yeah, I really try to cater to, I do a small program for people who like maybe are in a monogamous relationship and want to have this conversation, like me, like staring at my phone, like how the heck am I supposed to tell my husband this? So I do a small 1-month program for people in that situation where they're like, I can't live like this anymore. I need to tell my partner, but I don't know how to do that. And he's, whatever we make up in our heads of how that's going to go. And then really my big, like my signature, when I'm like super passionate, like through the roof excited about, is my non-monogamous newbies coaching program. And it's a 12-week program. There's so much content, but it really takes people either like you've had the conversation and you decide you want to do this, and or maybe you've kind of started already and you're like, oh shoot, we did this wrong, it is not working, we don't feel good, but we do really want to commit to trying this together for ourselves and for each other, but we need a reset, like we need to go back to the beginning. Both of those groups of people I think can find success in this, because we really go through like your why around non-monogamy, not like what you want to get out of it or what specific experience, but like why, what's coming up in you that makes you want to explore this, all the way through like types of non-monogamy, terms, jealousy, conflict resolution, all of that stuff. So yeah, it's a big deal for me. It feels like a, kind of coming to this point where I can really hopefully help other people, kind of get started on this, and also have a community of other people who understand, so they don't feel so alone and judged by the world. So yeah, that's
That's
program.
Beautiful. First, I'll always talk about community and how important community is. But I do want to touch on coming up with your why, because that when things get hard, because they're new, so they'll feel uncomfortable. I don't want to use the word hard, but they will feel uncomfortable coming back to your why and having it in the first place, then coming back to it is really important and helpful and will help move you through those uncomfortable times.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jess, really important work. Thank you so much for all the wisdom you brought today. And I'm going to have all your information down in the show notes. So please, everyone, go check her out. She also has a Facebook group, that you can go join, and I'll link that as well. That way you can see more of who she is. And hopefully, if you are wanting to explore this, reaching out to her to work with her. So Jess, thank you again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to the Relationship Diversity Podcast. Want to learn more about relationship diversity? I've got a free guide I'd love to send you. Go to www.relationshipdiversitypodcast.com to get yours sent right to you. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast. You being here and participating in the conversation about relationship diversity is what helps us create a space of inclusivity and acceptance together. The more comfortable and normal it is to acknowledge the vast and varied relating we all do, the faster we'll shift to a paradigm of conscious, intentional, and diverse relationships. New episodes are released every Thursday. Stay connected with me through my website, carriejaroslaw.com, Instagram, or TikTok. Stay curious. Every relationship is as unique as you are. Are you feeling stuck or unfulfilled in your intimate relationship? Do all your relationships end in the same way? Do you feel like you've lost the spark in your current relationship? Can you never even find one person who you want to explore a relationship with? If you answered yes to any of those questions, are sick and tired of feeling like a failure in your relationships, and desperately desire a different experience, then my 8-week deep reprogramming intensive may be the answer for you. In this program, I work individually with you for 8 transformative weeks. We'll identify the subconscious programming that's keeping you stuck and shift it to a new affirming belief systems. We go deep, we get real, we get results. This is healing unlike anything you've ever experienced before. Here's what people are saying. Jordan from North Carolina said, more has shifted in 8 weeks of working with Carrie than 10 years of psychotherapy. Jane from Sanford, North Carolina said, it's honestly changed my life. And Cassie from Santa Barbara, California said, Carrie's laser precision in helping me diagnose where the stuck energy was helped me make positive movement in our first session alone. Absolutely transformational. I love being a guide and witness to these courageous people who claim that they were done with their past experiences and ready for something different. I'm opening a limited number of spots for 2023 and would love to help you permanently transform your relationship experience. To set up a free 30-minute clarity call where I'll help you uncover your number one block to fulfilling relationships, connect with me through the link in the show notes. You are worthy of experiencing deep fulfillment and love in your relationships. This intensive work will help you get there.